I guess they did say you cannot win all 82 of them, and they were right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 72nd episode of the longest tenured Nuggets podcast hosted from Pančevo, Serbia. Welcome to the Serbian Corner. My name is Miroslav, and let me tell you, there's a tournament happening during this NBA regular season with a very catchy name, In-Season Tournament, and it is in full swing. Nuggets already played 3 out of their 4 group stage games, 2 of which were this week. Before the real stuff started, they did go to Houston and have one of their random Sunday afternoons in Houston in November. So, of course, they lost that game by 3 points. In a game, his DTness, Nikola Jokić, recorded 36, 21, and 11 and was plus 12. It was a game in which the bench players made four field goals, so maybe that had something to do with it. In all seriousness, the Rockets look real good this season. It was their 5th or 6th win in a row, so it wasn't that bad of a loss, actually. Then the LA Clippers came to town. It was a weird game. No Jamal, MPJ not feeling it from the outside, just 10 points in the game, and Jokić missed 15 shots from the field. If this were any other team, we'd just call it a bad night and concede an L, but Aaron Gordon chipped in 25 and 5, Reggie added 18 points, and the bench combined for whooping 22 points. We've seen the first real minutes of Jalen Pickett, and those were pretty good. But let's not kid ourselves. The Clippers are really, really bad right now. Last night, the Nuggets traveled to New Orleans to play at the Smoothie King Center. Guys, I understand teams need sponsors, but this is getting ridiculous. Smoothie King. Now, I didn't watch this game live. When I woke up, I saw they've lost to the team that didn't have McCollum, Larry Nance, and also Nuggets killer Jose Alvarado, and thought this was the first bad loss of the season. But when I actually watched it, sure, there were some bad moments, especially on defense, but in reality, there were so many missed three-point shots, especially by the non-KCP starters. 5 out of 25 by those 4 guys. And Michael Porter's misses felt like backbreakers every time the Nuggets were making a run. I'm really sorry, I won't use this phrase ever again. The Nuggets spoiled another epic Jokic performance, and now they're 9-3. But more importantly, they now don't have control over going to the elimination round of the mid-season tournament. And if the Pelicans win their last game against the lousy Clippers, they will secure the final 8 spot, even if Denver wins against the surging Rockets in their last group stage game. And getting one of those Western Conference wild cards, actually there's only one there, is going to be really difficult. I love how intense this is. It has real FIBA basketball vibes. Good job, NBA. Okay, that's enough ranting from me. Let me introduce my panel for today. First, a debutant to this show, a former co-host of the Nuggets Europe podcast. It is also a huge fan of Avs, Broncos, Rockies, and Rapids. Calling from just outside of London, UK, it's Brad Kay. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again. It's been a while.
It's been like, I'm not sure how many years. I don't want to say 3 years. I kind of think.
No, I think it has been 3 years.
Maybe 2.5 years ago. I cannot remember. Yeah. I know we have Dev Johnson with us the last time we were together. So
that's right.
we have to do it again sometimes. So tell me.
Definitely.
I know you're a family man living in Europe. Well, outside of European Union, just like Serbia. How did you manage to celebrate the Nuggets championship live in such difficult circumstances?
Yeah, the family were very kind, to be fair. They let me have a nice lay-in after the last game, so that was fun. But yeah, my partying wasn't as wild as it would have been when I was younger. Didn't have kids. But no, it was great to see the Nuggets finally get something on the board. After all the years we've been speaking as part of Nuggets Europe, it was nice to finally get the victory, because we all thought it might happen, but a bit slower than we thought maybe. But and here we are.
Yeah, we had to endure some uh, depth
Pain.
seasons, but finally we came up. Okay, next we have a returning offender, a guy who is equally interesting to listen to when he speaks about Nikola Jokic's dominance through the numbers and about the Akira Kurosawa motion pictures. Welcome back, Jordan Scott.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. As I told you out of the program, I should just stop playing basketball right before the podcast because it's really damaging to my body. I need some time to heal up, I guess. So, Jordan, since you're my only guest from the States today, I have to ask you. This is a new concept in US pro sports. How do you feel about the in-season tournaments so far?
I'm enjoying it. It feels like the games are a lot more competitive than we often get this time of year. So I enjoy that because we're getting better basketball. So
That's why last night's defeat was so devastating. Not because you've lost the regular season game, but you actually jeopardized the in-season tournament chances. So that sucks. And you should believe us. Us in Europe, we've been through that so many times before. When you have just one more win to clinch that quarterfinal spot or whatever it is, and you lose it, and it's like, oh man, like all the good games before that doesn't matter at all. Okay, so last but not least, probably the biggest Nuggets fan from Valencia, Spain, and also the chief editor of one of the biggest Real Madrid sites called Managing Madrid. Rounding up this Europe-heavy lineup, it's Lucas Navarrete. Lucas, welcome back to the show.
Hey Miroslav, thanks. Happy to be back. Although, the vibes could be better. They are not immaculate after the last 3 days, but happy to be back anyway.
Yeah, we have to suffer a bit, but I hope we'll be able to end up on a high note, definitely, this time around. So I knew you are a true basketball aficionado when I discovered how much you like Nikola Jokic, since there's this big rivalry between Serbian and Spanish basketball, where there have been 30 years of Yugoslav dominance followed by 20 years of Spanish one. That's why I find extremely difficult to root for Spanish players outside of our boy Juancho. There has been so much pain, recently. So were the Nuggets the main reason you embraced Nikola, or did Nikola make the Nuggets more appealing to you?
Oh no, I was a Nuggets fan all the way in when Jokic started playing in Denver. So it was just also his style of play. Like, having played basketball myself years ago, I could obviously kind of identify myself with the slow, non-athletic guy. Obviously not with his technical ability and all that, but you can definitely feel that, hey, this is something that maybe athletic wise I could do on the basketball court, just if I was more talented. It didn't seem impossible for me to do what he did. Obviously, on a technical perspective, it's definitely way tougher. But yeah, I started loving Jokic because he played for the Nuggets, definitely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, because how can I identify with LeBron when he's superhuman?
Exactly.
Like show me somebody that I could at least pretend I can look like. Not really, but maybe 20 years ago. I don't know. Okay, so let's dive into what happened last week. So Nuggets had a pretty bad week for their highest standards. They went 1-2, and that win over the Clippers felt much better before the Pelicans game. Winning ugly is important, but the Clippers kind of suck, so I don't know how much credit the Nuggets should get there. Let's start with the first game, the game in Houston. So Nuggets lost despite Nikola posting that crazy stat line, 36, 21, 11. And Michael Porter having his best offensive game of the season with 25 and 10. Bench scored a total of 8 points. Christian Brown disappeared, P. Watt and Strother too. So Jordan, what was in your opinion the main reason for this loss?
I mean, a lot of it. I mean, obviously the bench was struggling. It seems like they just don't have an identity without Jamal out there running the offense. But ultimately, like, we're seeing a lot of what we saw last year with the benches. They're not hitting shots on the road. Like, we're not getting production from them on the road.
Yeah, Brad, do you have any recollection of this game in ways of why it happened?
I don't know. It's a difficult one to say. I mean, the bench was struggling, and Braun had a good game. I know we'll come back to the Pelican game. Obviously, had 25 points off the bench, but I mean, it's pretty brutal, the rotation so far. I mean, Jokic goes off and it goes to pot, which isn't exactly where you want to be. Obviously, missing Jamal's massive. It seems that it just makes everything click. I just, from an eye view, the defense looks good, but it just seems to lack a bit of intensity to me. I don't know if it's just that stage of the season, or I don't know. Maybe someone's got a better idea than me, but it just seems a bit lacking.
Lucas, did you find Michael Malone not managing this game perfectly, or is it just, sometimes you need to lose in Houston?
The
in
Houston
November?
one, I didn't have a big problem with the Houston one. It was not an appealing loss, if you will. Like, not many silver linings you can find there for sure. But on the other hand, what frustrates me about these last two losses to Houston and also to the Pelicans is the fact that, back in the day when the Nuggets were losing games early in the season against quote unquote manageable opponents, it was because Jokic was not taking the game very seriously. You could feel like he was kind of saving himself for the later stages of the season. And I don't think that's been the case at all so far. It's quite the opposite, if I'm being honest. This is the fact that he hasn't been getting any help from his teammates. So in the Houston one, it was frustrating to see how poor the defense was on the last few minutes of the game. Obviously, Jeff getting those rebounds and getting easy lanes and easy way to the bucket to score. So to me, it was maybe one of the worst performances from MPJ from a defensive standpoint. One of those where you can actually see that, hey, maybe he still has some way to go defensively before we can actually say he's going to be reliable there at all times and forever from now on. So, but particularly, I didn't find anything particularly worrying in that game other than the obvious thing, which is obviously the bench.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So, second game versus the Clippers was actually insane. No Jamal, Joker shooting 8 out of 23 from the field. Porter had only 10 points. But then Aaron Gordon chipped in with, what was it? 25 and 5. Reggie Jackson with 18. And they willed the team to a win. Oh, and Joker actually was 14 of 14 from the free throw line with 16 rebounds and 9 assists. So, Brad, did you think this was an impressive win for the Nuggets facing adversity, or are the Clippers just a mess?
It's kind of a 50-50, really. I mean, the Clippers are a mess. I don't think they've got a real identity. I mean, they brought in Harden and he's been terrible. I mean, I think they've lost all 5 that he's played in so far? And
they got their first one yesterday, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, I missed yesterday. But yeah, I mean, they don't really have any identity. They seem like a team of 3 superstars and nothing else, really. But yeah, I mean, we ground in. It wasn't the most fluid performance we've had ever, but it was, a good win. Any win's a win, right? So, but yeah, the Clippers aren't great, right?
So, Jordan, there was some talk from the Altitude crew last night. They mentioned Clippers at one point, and Katie was kind to say that they have 4 superstars. They're trying to align, stuff like that. And Chris Marlowe was patient. He was listening to what she had to say. And at the end, she said, well, they did lose 6 in a row. Like, they're not that great.
Yeah.
So, was it the Nuggets or was it just the Clippers?
I do think it was a good win for the Nuggets because I kind of saw some improvement from LA in that game. Like, it wasn't good by any means for them, but it was better. And like, I think we could see them roll off some wins here because it's not like they don't have talent. They definitely do. And especially now with Westbrook going to the bench and giving them a little more diversity in that starting lineup and the style of play. I think that'll help them quite a bit. So I do think we saw them starting to come back, and Denver had to really actually perform to get the job done.
Lucas, how the fuck did they win this game?
I think Tyronn Lue made a big mistake by keeping Zubac out of the lineup in those last few minutes. I think he made a big mistake there. They were obviously helpless, and I understand. I listened to what Adam and the other guys had to say in the post game show, saying that sometimes it's worth trying different things, and the tiny lineup, tiny ball lineup, it's worth trying maybe that against Jokic. And in fact, you can actually argue the fact that it might work because he missed some bunnies there. He struggled offensively a little bit, but on the other hand, it seemed to me like he had a very clear idea of what to do and how to attack that lineup. So I don't think Tyronn Lue helped his team in those last few minutes. Although obviously Zubac is possibly not the answer to Jokic either, but I think he kind of shot himself in the foot a little bit.
Okay, before we get to the last night's game, let's take one short break. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we are back. I hated the game last night. I mean, I enjoyed Joker dismantling the Pelicans defense with his passing, but so many open threes missed by the starters. Najee Marshall hitting every shot in key moments, I felt. Ingram playing bad basketball, but hitting every shot at the end. And then that second to last possession with KCP semi-open three, followed by wide open threes by Reggie and Gordon, down 3. That was a rough watch. Lucas, what are your main takeaways from this game?
The main one is that the intensity, as Brad says for the Houston game, the intensity there on the first 2 quarters, the first half was just not there from Denver. You could definitely sense the urgency from the Pelicans. They were pushing like crazy every time they had the ball, and Denver were kind of struggling. In fact, I was very surprised to see that Denver kind of survived the first quarter, because the eye test was pretty terrible for the Nuggets on that first quarter, I thought. And the fact that they only went down like 5 or 6 points after those first 12 minutes was kind of surprising to me, because it was tough to watch them like running after the Nuggets every single time, getting easy layups, easy 2-point conversions on the paint. So it was tough to watch. And to me, it's clear that the Nuggets kind of dig themselves too big of a hole during that first half for them to climb back. And it's obviously sad to see and to waste a game like the one Christian Brown had. Obviously, Jokic put on a masterpiece there, but we were kind of screaming for Christian to improve a little bit. We got our prayers answered in that regard, and we wasted a big game from him. Hopefully, it still helps him in the future with a bit of a confidence boost in that regard.
Jordan, I was too annoyed to rewatch the game. I kind of wanted to see how many layups or around the rim baskets Jokic made with his 18 assists last night, because there were not a lot of threes, right?
No, I mean, I think somebody said they had like the first like 40 points in the game from both teams were in the lane, or like in the paint. Just like I think the Pelicans scored on their first 11 possessions. Like it was just, everything was easy for them, right in the bucket. And Jokic was getting easy looks for his guys. But honestly, they survived that crazy run from the Pelicans, and then Malone went full bench, and things kind of fell off the rails a bit.
And you never go full bench, right?
Never go full bench.
Not with Yamal anyway. Maybe with Reggie you can at least give it a try for 2-3 minutes. But now that Reggie is a starter, oof.
Yeah, Reggie can bail you out with 3 crazy shots,
Exactly.
and make it a 0 run out of 3 or 5 minutes. Brad, I'm always annoyed when there are some starters or rotation guys missing from the team, like New Orleans had, and everybody just assumes that they will lose because of it. I mean, they're replaced by NBA players, not by people from the street. So did it feel to you like the other guys that got the chance because of the missing guys had some extra motivation in the game?
Yeah, I think you could argue that, definitely. I think they definitely, as we've said, I mean, everyone was hitting shots left, right, and centre. I didn't see what the percentage was, but it seemed crazy at one point. I mean, we're talking about the bench as well, and I mean, what was Nagy had 4 minutes and was minus 10 or 11. I mean, something's got to click for him, because at the moment it's just awful. It's just he's got nothing going, and I mean, we've already touched on MPJ. I mean, you can handle a little bit of his defensive liabilities when he's pinging threes left, right, and centre, but he's not even doing that at the moment. So it's worrying. That second unit is very worrying at the moment.
Yeah, I guess
Jamal's back soon, right? Apparently, the talk is that he's been practicing. So
we'll see. We'll see. I guess you can say there can be only one Nagy, and it was Najee Marshall this time around. So it's just frustrating that one of the Pelicans guys have to have his career game against the Nuggets every time. But what's he gonna do? But it's the NBA. Okay, let's now dive into some rotation stuff. So the Houston game was the last one when we saw Colin Gillespie in the rotation. And I don't think he did anything wrong necessarily. It's just that they couldn't do much on either end of the court with him on the floor. Pickett played in the last 2 games. It was a mixed bag so far. Some great, some not so great minutes. So, Jordan, would you stick with Jalen going forward until Jamal returns from injury, or do you see a different path for the bench?
I mean, I think you almost...
Sorry, better said, non-Jokic minutes. That's the bench.
Yeah. I honestly think you almost have to, just because, like, Colin may have been slightly better for the offense, but, like, he might as well not have been out there on defense. He's just too small. Pickett at least has mass. Like, he's a big guy, and he can he knows how to use his size, too, on defense. And frankly, I think he has more potential to make plays happen as opposed to just kind of manage an offense. Colin's a good game manager, I think, as a point guard, but I don't know. I think Pickett has some of that. I can make something out of nothing. We haven't seen it much yet at this level, but that's kind of his game.
So, Brett, would you prefer to see Pickett again handling the bench lineup at least for a few minutes, or would you maybe prefer to see Reggie subbed out earlier and like have Christian Brown and no point guards with Jokic for a couple of minutes, and then have Reggie working with the bench?
You know, we haven't seen Justin Holiday yet, and that's a bit of an odd one for me. I mean, a bit of a veteran presence, and maybe add something different just to mix it up a little bit and take a bit of pressure off of something. But then again, I don't know. Something needs to change though, and I don't know what. That's Mike Malone. That's why he's the highest paid coach, right? So, apparently, I mean, no one knows what the details are, but yeah, that's his problem to worry about and us to talk about, I suppose.
That's right. Coach them, bro. Lucas, what are your feelings about Jalen?
I would just, if I were Malone and I were the Nuggets, I would just punt on bench offense and just put the best defensive lineup I could find for the bench for those 2 or 3 minutes that we need full bench until Jamal comes back. I would just assume the fact that Denver is going to struggle with the full bench lineup on offense and just put the best defensive lineup, switch ability, just prioritize that, and that guy is probably Pickett anyway. So yeah, I would just try to put the best defensive 5 lineup I could find without Jamal, and try to maybe score some transition opportunities now that Brown seems to have found something going, at least against the Pelicans. Maybe try to unleash P. Watt in that regard with some transition buckets here and there. I think your best chance of kind of being a respectable unit is to punt on offense and just try to put the best defensive 5 you can find.
Okay, I'm going to stay with you, Lucas, on this other question. We've seen Aaron Gordon playing the backup 5 a couple of times already in this season, and we haven't seen that at all last regular season. So is Malone panicking playing his main guys extended minutes? I mean, I get it. Last night, Najee was a disaster. But do you think it's a necessity because they're so thin under the basket? Or or maybe there need to be some more patience with the other guys?
As poor as Zeke has been, I think Malone is reaching a little bit too far with Gordon's usage at the backup five at the moment. I would probably stick with Nagy mainly because I just don't love this Orlando Magic version of Gordon. Requiring him to create his own shot and needing him to score the way he's not accustomed to since he left Orlando. So I would probably stick with Zeke as tough as that seems to be in some games. I would just try to remember that sometimes he still is playable, like in the game against Memphis, for example. Sometimes his hustle and his work ethic bails you out in a couple of possessions. And again, just obviously Aaron Gordon is a great defensive player, but I think maybe the fact that he's playing the backup five at the moment with the bench unit maybe is taking a little bit of his focus away in terms of what he needs to do when he's on the court. So I would just, obviously for a very short period of time, but I would probably stick to Zeke and try to get some defensive stops here and there.
So, Jordan, I have a tongue in my cheek when I ask you this. This is not a genuine take, but did Malone really know he has Aaron Gordon as a backup five, as a perfect option for the playoffs last year, or did he discover that by accident in the playoffs and now he's using it because now he knows it works?
Well, I'm trying to remember. I feel like we saw it briefly in like January in a couple
Super
of those
briefly,
games.
yes.
Yeah, but like they were in a couple of those games where like the bench looked great. And it was, I think, somewhat because they had Aaron Gordon at the five and it was just so switchable. I think he noticed that and was like, oh, okay, that's our playoff thing. But you need another scorer out there, I think. Somebody who can make it easier on him and not put the pressure on him to be the number one option. Because again, he can do that, just not well. Like he can be the number one option, just not very efficiently.
I can rely on that option when Jamal comes back. I have no problem. But when Jamal still hasn't recovered, I just punt on offense and just try to get some stops. Which obviously Gordon can help in that regard. But on the other hand, maybe the balance isn't there because he's taking away some of his focus again.
Okay, Brad, MPJ is shooting 12 of 38 for 31% from the three-point line in the last 5 games. What's your level of concern for his shot?
High for me, because he's got such a high ceiling of what kind of player he could be. That's a big drop-off from where he can be. That's huge. That's incredible, and there's a lot of points left out there as well. That's for me is probably the biggest concern I have at the moment. Apart from the bench, I mean, ignore the second unit. Let's ignore that for now. But that's from our starters. That's the biggest problem I think we've got at the moment.
Lucas, can you see anything different regarding his shot? Are they the same shots he's always taking? I mean, last night he had 2 3-pointers. One was in perfect rhythm, inside out from Jokić. It was a perfect shot, and the other one was a completely crazy one from the wing, and it went in. But all the other ones looked pretty normal for his standards, and they were just going in and out.
Yeah, you can obviously say that maybe, again, the ankle is still bothering him a little bit. That's what he's saying. I don't know how much that would affect a pure jump shooter like him, but if he's kind of able to find that excuse personally for himself, that's good, because it might not affect his confidence as much. Like if he was feeling perfectly fine with his body, maybe he has an extra point to be concerned, right? If he's not feeling well, maybe he can find that release in the way that, oh, I'm not feeling fine with my ankle. As long as I'm feeling fine, as I recover properly, my shot will be back. The frustrating thing about it is that, like, you cannot find the perfect package of MPJ just yet, right? He's doing all the right things with his cuts, with his defense, and now the only thing that he was so relied upon with which was his shooting is missing. He's doing all the right things, pushing all the right buttons on offense. He's cutting, his shot selection is fine. He's playing defense. He's playing hard. He's not being selfish. He's passing to his teammates and all that. So it's just a matter of him now finding a few extra 3-pointers for us to really have finally an unleashed version of MPJ. Like, what is his average now without Jamal? Is he averaging close to 20? If he were like really hitting his usual percentage from the 3-point line, he could be averaging like 25, 26 easily. Like, you can definitely find a few extra 3-pointers in every single game. Like, you can definitely say, hey, he's making that in a few months' time. So I think there are positive signs about MPJ, because I have to assume that his percentage will go up.
So, Jordan, we know how important his length is to the Nuggets. Aggregate length they have on defense, and of course he's really useful on that side of the ball. But when it's the pressure cooker, when it's the clutch time, maybe his cutting and his rebounding isn't as important like in the other times. You really need his shot to be wet when he's left open. Can you see Malone putting in Christian Brown instead of him for closing lineups if this slump continues?
No.
Not that he's a great shooter. It's just
I don't see it. I think, as much as I think Christian Brown is a great defender, I don't think he brings the same things on that side of the ball as MPJ does. Like you said, just the sheer length. And frankly, MPJ has just he's a really smart recovery defender, like getting back to his guy, and you don't see that as much from Christian Brown because he doesn't have to, but it's something different from what the other guys have. But
what about Michael's rebounding? I think that's a low key thing that really helps the team. Obviously, with Gordon and Jokic, that's not a massive point of emphasis because both Gordon and Jokic rebound the ball pretty well. But I think that he's doing the right things again with his rebounding as well. So again, just a few shots here and there in every game, and he could be having a very, very bright season.
Yeah, well, and let's not forget that Game 5 of the finals, he couldn't shoot the whole series, but he was probably the second best player in that Game 5.
He was,
despite not being able to shoot. He was really good and helped win that game. So.
Yeah.
It's a really cool story, and just let's ask the basketball gods to give him his shot back, like those. What is it called from the Michael Jordan movie? The Monsters need to give him back his powers. Yeah.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I looked up his splits by month, and he, for his career, shoots 33% from 3 in November. So maybe it's just a November thing. So.
Maybe also added the fact that he missed the preseason. Yeah. And it's important to him though, because you can definitely sense that he takes a lot of pride in his shooting ability, and that's what makes him enjoy the game, right? I mean, he's obviously very useful with his length offensively. His cuts are on point most of the time. He dunks here and there. Obviously, those dunks are obviously fun, but you can definitely sense that he knows his shot is missing, and he knows it's starting maybe to get into him, the fact that he's missing some wide open shots. So he'll be I'm guessing he'll be fine. I'm not worried about it.
Yes. Okay. Let's take one more short break, and then we'll go into some other stuff. Don't go anywhere. All right. It is time to give Reggie Jackson his flowers. So he stepped into the starting lineup after Jamal's injury, and he has been excellent. In his last 4 games, he is averaging 16.5 points, almost 4 assists, and was a plus in plus-minus column in both wins, despite having to lead non-Jokic minutes from time to time. Lucas, we knew Reggie was a very productive NBA player several years ago, but the main concern was always his fit on a read-and-react team like the Nuggets. Is Reggie in your circle of trust already?
Yes. And I was higher on his signing than most. I get the concerns that his shot selection, his IQ maybe on offense not being there and all that, but I always found him to be like as you mentioned a productive player, a very useful player at the NBA level. So I was higher on his signing last year and than most, and also this season when the Nuggets decided to give him that extension. So I trust him. Obviously, he will make some mistakes here and there because he's not used to not being a creator on offense. He can be kind of chaotic offensively time to time, with careless with the ball, careless with his shot selection. So he has to make some progress there. I'm guessing that he will be better, and obviously when he's back into the bench, I think he can be wonderful for that bench lineup, like doing what he does best, scoring the ball and worrying about the rest instead of kind of him trying to find a role in the Jokic-led offense. So I trust him. I have always been, I wouldn't say a fan, but Reggie Jackson appreciator, if you will. I've always kind of liked him. I actually liked his pick and roll chemistry with Drummond back in the day, in the Pistons day, right? And obviously it didn't work for Detroit very well, but he had some things going there with Drummond. So I think he can be very useful.
So, Brad, were you surprised how well he works with Jokic?
A little, yeah. I think he's fitted in quite nicely and smoothly. And I think the only thing that I've had a bit of an issue with him has been the turnovers. I think we're going back to the IQ thing. The turnovers have been really sloppy at times and semi-crucial in parts of the game when you kind of just want him to keep it a little bit low-keyer than he is, trying to be probably a little bit too clever, maybe. I don't know, maybe not, but maybe that's going back to the IQ side of things. But no, I think he's fitted in nicely, and I mean, started off, and I think you're right, in the starting rotation moment, he's been pretty solid. So.
Jordan, Reggie's a guy that's really, easy to root for, being a Colorado guy and being so humble. His interviews, he's never putting him in the front seat, in the driving seat, as Paul George likes to say. He's always, giving flowers to Jokic and the system built around him. It's like we just need to follow his lead and everything will be perfect. But I'm guessing you were nervous about Reggie being a kind of a wild card before we actually saw it work.
Well, yeah, because I mean, we saw it not work last year. So obviously it was a bit of a wild card, but I just liked what I heard from him. Like, I thought a cool moment was on media day was when he and Justin Holiday were at the table. They had the trophy there and they were kind of commenting on it. And Justin's just like, oh man, it's cool to be this close and everything. And Reggie's kind of acting in awe too. He's like, man, you won that. He's like, I didn't do anything. Like, he's still hungry. Like, he wants to be he wants to contribute to a title. Like, he's got a ring, but I don't think it feels satisfying to him, because he didn't really get to contribute.
Yeah, he's like, thank you guys for giving me this ring, and now I'm gonna try to repay you. But Lucas, it really looks like this is the kind of basketball he always wanted to play and just didn't have a chance to do, because of his previous teams.
I don't know. I wouldn't go as far as saying that, because he had other opportunities to be a pure point guard, if you will, in his career, and he kind of always wanted to do his own thing, right? By leaving Oklahoma first, then in Detroit, again, it wasn't a very efficient basketball, even though that pick and roll thing was working. So I wouldn't go as far as saying that. I would just say that he was a very good player, man, when he was at his peak. He was like really good. Like, Oklahoma had to trade him because he was way better than a six man. So now that he's a veteran, now that he kind of, his best days are behind him, I think he's being smart enough to realize that this is no longer about me doing stuff, but rather than fitting in and being useful, and I can be useful. So much credit to him. But I'm not entirely sure about whether or not this is the style of basketball he's always wanted to play. Whereas, you can definitely sense that about a player like Gordon, for example, right? I'm not entirely sure that's the case with Jackson, other than him maybe acknowledging the fact that what made him great in the past he cannot rely on that anymore at this stage of his career. But he was a very good player in the past, and he's been smart enough now to realize that, hey, in order for me to contribute on a winning team, this is what I got to do. So I'm willing to do it, and definitely a lot of credit goes to him.
Yeah, I agree. So, Brad, after last night, Jokic is averaging 29.7 points, 14.1 rebounds, 9.2 assists. His raw plus minus after 12 games is plus 125. So the Nuggets won his minutes by 125 and lost minutes without him by 40. Harrison Wind made a semi-joke saying that he likes the narrative that Nikola never played with an all-star player. But that's a cold hard fact. And I even feel with Jamal back, it will be fair to say that any future accolades the Nuggets other guys will hopefully get are going to be based on huge team success and not really on the individual brilliance, at least in the regular season. I'm making a concerted effort to talk about Jokic in every show, even though he's the only constant night in and night out.
Yeah.
Is there anything new you're seeing from him this season?
No, not really. He's still God. I mean, he's the greatest basketball player at the moment. I mean, you can say what you like. He's just unbelievable. Has he changed too much? Yeah, everything still flows through him. Still putting on points. Still playing minutes. We look terrible when he's not on the court. Not much else to say, really. I mean, he is what he is.
So, Jordan, the funniest thing to me is when I look at his, 2016 highlights, he's doing the same stuff. Like all the stuff he's doing now, he did it 8 years ago. It's just that he's a bit better in every facet of the game. And of course, he's reading the game even better, especially, opposition actions. He always tells his guys what to do and what's going to happen after the timeout. But is there a palpable thing that you can say, okay, but we haven't seen this before?
I mean, it's early still in the season, but he's taken a lot of threes compared to what he normally does. He's not hitting them yet, but that's something I always kind of thought he picked his spots in. He didn't want to become reliant on it, but if he can start getting those to fall and still shoot him at the 5+ a game range, like he kind of has been, like that's gonna make him even more unguardable. But he's just the ultimate problem solver. Like he comes into the league and he's got to figure out the size and the athleticism, and he did. And then, now they have counters for him because he's on the scouting report. Okay, I'll figure out counters to that. And this is where he is. Like he just keeps solving the problems.
So, Lucas, why do you think he is taking so many threes this year?
I'm not entirely sure, but about your previous question to the two guys, to Jordan and Brad, I would say that the one new thing I've seen from him is that he's taking every game very seriously now. Even the first 5 games of the season, like you were not seeing this from him in the past. You were seeing kind of slowly getting in shape, getting in condition, getting his focus, getting everything together, and then he would become great after December, January, usually. Obviously, he was great anyway. He was pretty much averaging a triple-double anyway, but definitely not this kind of focus. Like, we're seeing pretty close to playoff Jokic by November already. And this is something we were not accustomed to seeing in the past. Like, the performances he's putting now are, again, pretty close to what he was doing in the playoffs last season, and that wasn't usual back in the day with Jokic in November, I don't think.
My favorite comment of his is when reporters ask him about his increase in production in playoffs, and he was always like, "Well, of course I play more minutes. It's linear. it's very normal. Like, yes, sure, I'm not playing against Detroit anymore, but yeah, it's the same kind of basketball. What you gonna do?" But he never started a season this deep into it, averaging more than 25 points per game. He's now at 30.
Yeah.
So he realizes that the game is easy to him. It's not like I need to do this. It's just that I can do this. And why wouldn't we get some easy buckets here and there? Because we can. So that's the biggest difference to me. He's asserting himself, and I believe he doesn't feel like he's doing anything wrong. Like, yeah, of course I'm doing it because nobody can guard me, and yeah, sure. And when they stop and when they start doubling me and tripling me, then the guys will be free, and then I will have a 18 assists game against the Pelicans that we will lose. But yeah, watch you.
Yeah, he's finally become, and this is obviously a negative interpretation of the word, but he's finally become a bit selfish on offense, which I think we all wanted him to be, at least for a few portions of the last few seasons. Like, hey man, the most efficient way for us to get the win is if you take 25 shots a game. Stop passing for an open three to a guy who isn't as efficient as you. Get to the bucket, and we trust you to do that, and that's the most efficient way we can find to get a win. So I think he finally has come to realize and to acknowledge the fact that, man, sometimes you just have to give me the ball and get out of the way, and that's the most useful thing we can do in order to get the W. So I think finally we're seeing this asserted, as you mentioned, this finally asserted version of himself, in the way that he finally is playing like the best player in the NBA, with that kind of ego, if you will, like with kind of assertion in the game.
So Jordan,
Murray out as well, right? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. What
I was going to say, with Murray out, I feel that before he's kind of let
absolutely.
the others filter in, whereas now he's sort of said, no, it's on me, put it on my back and I'll just do it, rather than trying to get everyone else to play.
Yeah.
And Jordan, I do have a tinfoil hat on me, but when Lucas says he finally has that selfishness to him, is it just the fact that if I get more points at the beginning of the game, everything will open for my teammates and we will be better as a team?
I mean, I think to an extent is that. I think he also realizes that sometimes to win, he does have to be a little more selfish. And ultimately, I mean, he said it the other day, winning is fun, losing sucks. Like he's got a taste of winning, and I think that's the biggest difference, is he just doesn't want to give that up. So
it's so funny that we quote that when he said, yeah, winning is fun as losing sucks. Like it's some kind of smart mantra. It's a very basic thing to say. It reminds me of a joke when a person is looking for the smartest man alive, and he found out that he lives in the Himalayas, and he goes there, and finally he meets him and asks him, please, oh wise man, what is the meaning of the life? And he said, life is a river. And he asked him, what? Life is a river? And the wise man says, what, it isn't? Like he wasn't sure. It was just something he said. Okay, let's take one short break, and then we'll come back with some trivia game. Okay, I already mentioned that we are going to play a game that is called the 3 J's. So, the 3 J's in this particular game are MJ, LBJ, or NJ. So, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, or Nikola Jokic. I will give you a stat, and you will tell me who is the all-time leader in that stat. And we will start with Brad. First stat. This player has the highest playoff PER in the NBA history. Is it MJ, LBJ, or
Nikola Jokic? It's got to be.
That is correct. Nikola Jokic is number one in this category with 29.02. Michael Jordan is at 28.6, George Mikan 28.51, and LeBron James is fourth with 27.94. Okay, Jordan, next question for you. This player has the highest playoff win shares per 48 minutes in the NBA history. So playoff win shares per 48.
You're throwing me off with the playoff ones. I haven't looked at those nearly as much.
Yeah, I know. It's more difficult.
I want to say it's Jokic, but it's him or Jordan. It's not LeBron, but I think it's Jokic.
It is not Jokic. Lucas?
It has to be Jordan then, I think.
It is. It is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is 0.255. George Mikan again at number 2, 0.254. LeBron James 0.238, and Jokic is at the measly 4th place at 0.235.
He's behind LeBron. I wouldn't have predicted that. Yeah.
It is. I think those two Jamalless playoff
sure.
seasons really
Although
hurt.
he was incredible in that Warriors series. So
I agree. Okay, Lucas. This player has the highest playoff box plus minus in the NBA history.
That has to be. I think box plus minus is like the best stat for Jokic. I have to go with Jokic there. I think that's the best. Yeah.
Yes, that is incorrect, Brad.
Oh,
it's not Jokic.
See, I knew this one.
I've got a 50-50 then. Let's go Jordan.
Michael Jordan is correct. His playoff box plus minus is 11.1. Jokic is at 10.4. So I guess
far away.
I think he can move past him this season.
Yeah.
And LeBron James is at 10.0. Okay, back to Brad. Okay, this is more difficult. This player has the most games with 28 plus points, 8 plus rebounds, 8 plus assists on 70 plus true shooting percentage in regular seasons and playoffs in the NBA history. So this is basically, before you answer, this is basically a LeBron stat, 28, 8,
Yeah.
8.
Which is
But
who I would
which
say.
player has the most such
I'm
games
going to say LeBron.
at the high true shooting percentage of 70 plus? LeBron is not correct. Jordan.
Well, if it's not LeBron, it's Jokic. The true shooting percentage, I'm sure, is what does it.
Yeah.
Yes, I think true shooting is not the best friend of Michael Jordan because he shot a lot of long twos back in the day. It was a different kind of basketball.
It's still better than you would think.
Oh yeah, he was awesome. He was scoring like 34 points per game on 54% from field goal, which is insane. Being a guard. Okay, next question goes to Jordan, and this player has the most consecutive games with 15 plus points, 5 plus rebounds, 5 plus assists on 50 plus field goal percentage, regular season or playoffs in the NBA history.
See, I think I'm wondering if you pulled the fast one and did like a different number than I remember, but I feel like Jokic did that last year.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic has 13 such consecutive games. Actually, Wilt Chamberlain is tied with him at 13, and Giannis has 11. LeBron James has 10. Now, I have to tell you one thing. This is according to Basketball Reference or StatHead, and I think this is actually incorrect because Kubatko, the guy that was actually the founder of Basketball Reference, actually put that Nikola has something like 20 such games or 20 something such games consecutive. There is an error somewhere in the databases. So take this with a grain of salt. Okay.
I was going to say because like 13 feel too low for Jokic.
Yeah, I think
definitely.
it was
15-5-5. It's like I cannot remember the last time he didn't reach those marks. I know the 50% field goal percentage is what probably kills it, but again, I struggle finding a game. Yeah.
It's so shout out to Justin Kubatko who made this more clear. Okay, last question. It is for Lucas, and it is: this player has the most regular seasons with a 10 plus box plus minus in NBA history. So the most regular seasons finished at 10 plus box plus minus?
I'm going to say LeBron because of longevity. Not entirely sure, but I'm going with LeBron.
That is incorrect. Brad.
I'll go Nikola Jokic then.
Nikola
Wow.
Jokic is too young. That is not
Exactly.
correct.
Ah.
Okay. Would have been crazy if it were Jokic. Like, I'm ready to hand the.
Jordan's peak was crazy. He had like 8 or 9 years in a row where he got 10 plus. Like it's nuts. Like
He actually has 7 such seasons, but that's still it's not consecutive because he missed a
Yeah.
couple of seasons mid that series. But yes, 7 such seasons. LeBron actually has 5, and Nikola Jokic already has 3, and he's gonna get his 4th one this season for sure. So he's closing in on those 2 guys. Wow, guys, I'm so disappointed in myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a single one for LeBron. Oh, that
Oh, no.
sucks. It's always Jordan or Jokic. What you gonna do? It's so sad.
well, I mean, you could have gone total points, but that just seems like a gimme.
Yeah, I
That's-
just don't want to give you gimmies, like two.
That's
easy
because he
ones.
wanted to get his teammates involved in Miami, Miroslav.
Yeah, that must be it. That must be it. Okay, guys, any parting thoughts before we go?
I would like to know. I don't know if any of you know what happens if the Pelicans don't beat the Clippers and the Nuggets do beat the Rockets. What
Well, the
happens there?
Well, the Nuggets would be the
Nuggets
only
go
3-1 team then,
Yeah, they would win
because the Pelicans already lost one.
No, sorry. Yeah, the other way around. If the Pelicans do beat the Clippers and the Nuggets beat the Rockets as well, that's
What
a
I've seen is
tiebreaker. How would that work?
What I've seen is it's head to head, so the Pelicans would take it.
Yeah, yes,
True,
but
yeah.
but the Nuggets will still have a chance to get the wild card if they are the best second placed team out west.
They'd
And
probably
right
have
now-
to beat the Rockets by a lot.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
And we will see. We will see. I'm so interested to see if Nikola Jokic would just get into that game saying to his guys, we need to crush these fools tonight because it's NBA Cup, guys. This is
Yeah.
what we need.
Just to a little bit short here, since we're running out of time, Miroslav, and also Brad, since we're all Europeans, wouldn't you like this to be like a two-way group in the sense like 8 games would make more sense? Like a game at home against the Rockets, then an away game against the Rockets. It would be longer for the in-season tournament, sure, but I think it would make more sense, and also the tiebreakers would be easy to figure out, right?
Easy to
Instead
figure,
of having
I
those
mean,
many teams with the same records.
that would be cool because I mean, then you could potentially put it at like around Christmas where the tournament happens, which I think the
Exactly.
NBA would love. So
Yeah.
I think that's the way to go, yeah.
Yeah, I will go on a limb and say that this is something they're planning when the league expands to 32 teams. Then you could have like 4 groups of 8 teams, and you can give 7 games to each, like round robin style, and you get seven regular group stage games, and then you go into quarterfinals or even maybe like top 16, maybe go even crazier. Yeah, that would be fun because NBA doesn't have much to offer, against football, before the football season ends. So I'm excited that they're trying out some new things. And Lucas, you're a huge football or soccer fan, working for the Real Madrid site and being a journalist. You know how exciting the cups are in Europe, and you have even in UK you have 2 different cups. You have the Liga Cup and then the FA Cup, and all of those things matter to people because they want to say, yeah, we haven't won any Premier Leagues ever, but we have like 3 League Cups, and that's something in our
Different
history.
vibe to the tournaments as well, yeah. Knockout elimination games from the get go in both the Copa del Rey and also the FA Cup is great, I think. So yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you. I think we ended on a pretty high note for this depressing kind of week for the Nuggets. We hope to get some good news while the Nuggets continue their road trip, another 4 road trip games before the end of this one. And before we get to that, I will leave you with just one message. Idemo Nuggetsi.